Today we're making Methi Thepla, which is a type of flatbread from northeast India in Gujarat. It's quite similar to a chapati, but it's multigrain and it's a bit more pimped up because it's got really nice spices, which I'll go into later. So first of all, we'll start off with the whole grain flour here. So I've measured out 100 grams. And then we'll move on to the 100 grams of sorghum flour. So typical recipes use millet flour and chickpea flour. So this is quite similar. So it's quite sweet and it's really nice. I've never actually used it before, but you can get it from specialty stores like Holland and Barrett, for example, in the UK. So next up, we're going on to the methi, which is these fenugreek leaves. So the recipe I'm using is from Saffron Soul, which is a really good recipe book, but some of the ingredients are also hard to get quite a lot of the time. And secondly, I thought they recommended too much fenugreek, so I'm adding 16 grams here instead of 25 grams in the recipe. And also in the recipe, they recommend using millet flour, but sorghum flour is a good alternative. And next up, we'll move on to this mixture. So I've got a mixture of sesame seeds, and then turmeric, and then salt, and I'll blend in what the quantities are so you don't get confused. So we'll add all of those in there. So it's really nice and aromatic, this dish, but I've never made it before, so that's why I'm doing everything quite slowly. And as you can see, this is kind of the reason why I didn't add 25 grams of fenugreek, because you can see there's quite a massive amount here. But it should still taste nice, but it might not be your typical Methi Thepla. So there's some really good recipes on YouTube. So next we'll move to this really nice paste which I made earlier. So I mashed up together some ginger, some chili. So I use Scotch bonnet in this case because I had leftover from a previous recipe, which I'll link here. And then also the last thing is garlic. So it's got quite a lot of garlic. So I'm going to add about 2 or so tablespoons of this, but it's up to you how much you want to add. This recipe I'd say is quite flexible, but I'm a bit worried about the fenugreek being a bit too much here. So this will be roughly 2 tablespoons. So yeah, that looks nice. So lastly, I'm going to mix this all together a bit. And then I'm going to add some oil. Sorry for the background noise, someone's mowing their lawn unfortunately, so I didn't time that particularly well. So the fenugreek, I did try to chop it up before I added it, but as you can see it's fairly coarse, so this will look like a bit of a weird Methi Thepla. So methi is fenugreek, so fenugreek's got a quite nutty taste, and it also tastes similar to artificial maple syrup. And I'm a bit pissed off that I've started recording just as someone's mowing their lawn. But anyway, so they recommend, I think, about 2 or so tablespoons of the oil. So I'm just going to do it roughly because I cook in quite a spontaneous fashion, as you can probably tell. So that's hopefully okay. Whoever's mowing their lawn, I would like to tell them off, but no one will watch this video anyway, so we'll carry on. So yeah, this is probably going to end up as something which is a bit of an abomination like my previous recipes, but as long as it tastes good, I really don't care, to be honest. So next up, so interestingly, you could make this recipe vegan. The only thing here which isn't vegan is this coconut yogurt. So they recommend using natural yogurt in the recipe, so they recommend 3 tablespoons, but I thought it'd be interesting with a bit of coconut flavour. So I'll add 3 tablespoons of this, and obviously I'll give the recipe as well, but I'd imagine not many people want to follow this recipe because there's some good videos of over 1 million views with some Indians actually making this who will actually know what I'm doing. But part of the idea of this channel is I try stuff out, it might not work, it might work, and I think it's a bit more entertaining, to be honest, doing videos in this way. So I'm going to give it a really good mix in there and trying to work out if I've missed anything, but I think I've added everything I've needed, apart from in a sec I'll add the water. So I've got about 100 ml in here, so the recipe recommends 80 ml, and I'm going to hope that it works out okay. So whilst I'm making up this dough, so Gujarat is largely vegetarian because there's a strong influence from Jainism, which is a type of religion which is similar to Hinduism. So there's about 500,000 people in Gujarat, and also there's a large numbers in Rajasthan who practice this religion. The idea with the vegetarianism is that it stems from that in Jainism, each being or each life form is treated equally. So the idea being they have to care for all different forms of life, including insects. With ahimsa, you gain karma, whereas if you do himsa, which is violence, then you have bad karma, so quite similar to Hinduism. So with Jainism, the people who practice it very strictly, for example, don't eat root vegetables like garlic, for example, and potatoes and many other different ones. And that's the idea being here is that they don't want to cause harm to insect life, for example, when they're uprooted. And then they also avoid fermented foods and drink, for example, because that can also harm different life forms. And they also have some quite strict fasting regimes, for example. So I read, for example, somewhere that there's about 15 different forms of fasting which are listed on Wikipedia, and one of them being that you're not allowed to, you have to not eat any food for 15 days, and then also you're only allowed to drink boiled water in this time. But quite a lot of these things obviously are a bit outdated, I'd say, but there's still quite a strong stronghold of Jains in Gujarat, for example, and it still has quite a large influence. So, for example, in India, although most people think it's a vegetarian country, there's still quite a lot of people, for example, who eat meat, for example, and about 80% of the country is Hindu, but still there's large influence from other religions such as Sikhism, Islam, Buddhism. But yeah, I thought that'd be quite an interesting fact. So I've added almost 100 ml of water here, and I'm going to add a little bit more. If you add too much, like I've probably done, for example, you could just simply add a bit more whole grain flour. And I think I probably made that mistake. So I'm going to go in the other room now into the kitchen and get some flour to help out here. So I've got my flour now, so I'll add a bit of this. Actually quite a lot, to be honest. Put it down there. Give it a mixture and enjoy the sounds of the freaking lawnmower in the background. So yes, it's quite a nice dough as you can see, but it's still a bit sticky. So I can't even remember now if I've actually added the oil, but hopefully I have. If not, I'm going to go back and look at this video again to see if I did or not. So it's going to probably end up more like a chapati with a higher content of whole grain flour here. We're going to then basically make it into about 10 to 12 balls, it says, and then roll it out to 12 centimeter diameter. So you can, this is for example about 9 centimeters, so you just need it a little bit bigger than this, for example. And I'll do that in the kitchen and try and recover from this bad video. So my dough is a little bit sticky, so I'm adding a bit more flour still, and hopefully it'll be okay but not dry. Yeah, it's perfect now, I'd say. So it's quite soft. You don't need to worry about kneading it. It's just rolling it out like because it's just a basic flatbread, although I'm struggling quite badly, as you can see. So we're now going to make it up into little golf balls, so around sort of golf ball size. So we'll do that in the next few minutes. So here we've got 9 balls, which are sort of golf ball size. They're a bit big, but I want to save myself the trouble later because you have to fry each of these individually, so 9 just makes life easier. The recipe says 10 to 12, so that's good enough. So we're going to roll each of these out now. So roll in a circular motion. It's slightly awkward, so it needs to be roughly circular, but I'm sticking a little bit, so I'm going to add a bit more flour. And just use your hands a bit if you're struggling like I am. Why does I think I should stop doing dough recipes maybe, because they just end up taking ages and that looks absolutely awful. And also the diameter's a bit too small as well, so it needs to be quite a lot thinner, I'd say. So as you can see, this one's not exactly how I envisaged, but I'm going to put it on a lightly floured plate, and then I'm going to do the next ones, and hopefully I'll have a good one for the thumbnail to show off. Whilst I recover from my Methi Thepla failures, I'll go through what I'll be serving with them tomorrow. So mango chutney here, I can't be asked to make it. This looks pretty nice and fancy, so we'll go over that. And then also spinach raita, I think it's called Palak raita in Indian, or Hindi I should say. So I've done a variation here of a Meat Free Mowgli recipe. That's a really good recipe book, by the way. So I've got spinach in there, then cabbage. So I first off cooked my cabbage for about 20 minutes, then added my spinach at the end. And then I combined a few other things after I drained both of them. So I added coconut yogurt, so the same one I used for the Methi Thepla, then also lemon juice. And I then fried some garlic and also a bit of cumin as well, quite a lot of cumin I should say. And then I finished off by mixing it all together and adding some salt and also pepper. So this tastes very nice, and we'll see you tomorrow. Unless I've got anything else to add, of course. As you can see, I had some problems rolling it out and getting loads of flour over me. You can see we've got all of these ones being fried at the moment, and I did struggle a bit rolling them out into a perfect shape, but it's quite simple. You just flip them a couple of times, leaving a minute each time to start with, and you want them a nice light brown colour, and you can add a little bit of extra oil, for example, around the sides, which apparently helps them look a bit browner and crispier. And these are some of the ones we've done earlier, and these will be done in a second, and you'll see later me trying some of them. Okay, so now it's tasting time. They look very nice, and hopefully they also taste good. I'm going to try and do it the Indian way and use my hands completely, which will make a complete mess, but actually no, I'll use a spoon for the mango chutney. So mango chutney, and as I mentioned earlier as well, it's got Palak Raita as well. And now we'll try it. That's a really good balance, and it's a little bit easier as well than the, for example, than the gyozas. And it's quite nice also having it a more like milder kind of curry, as well as with the sweetness of the mango chutney. So yeah, we did a pretty good job here. Thanks for watching.